Today I am joined by Scott from Compassion Over Killing. Can you talk about the footage that you did get or anything like that?
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, in North Carolina, there was a chicken slaughter place. We saw a lot of people throwing birds around. They would throw them into the shackles, they'd punch them, tear their feathers out, forcibly open their mouths, stick their fingers in, things like that. In Minnesota, we saw a lot of overuse of electric prods. Prods would be used multiple times on the animals, often in sensitive parts of
Which
their
animals?
bodies. Sorry, this is pigs.
Okay, yeah.
Often in like the face or the behind. Some animals would actually regain sensibility after their throats had already been stuck. So they'd be shackled up and they'd start to try and like right themselves because the cuts hadn't been correct, so they'd regain.
What do you mean right themselves?
They'd try and orient their bodies so they were right side up again.
Okay.
So they're trying to do that while on this chain that's hanging them from the ceiling.
Wow.
We saw a decent amount of that. People mistreating the sick, downer animals. They'd push them around, try and lift them up by their tails instead of moving them with a sled, which we were supposed to. And in the lamb facility, we saw a lot of violations of the Humane Methods of Slaughter Act, multiple cuts done to the animals' throats when it's supposed to be an instantaneous severance of those arteries there. And we also, I think, when looking at our footage later, we saw 90% of those animals react to having their tails cut off later on in the line, meaning they were quite possibly still sensible. They could probably still feel all of that happening.
Wow. Okay, man. Do you feel like is this something you recommend people to do still today? Like, do you think, because I guess there's a lot of footage out there now, of standard practice, of excessive cruelty. Do you think that we still need to get more and keep it current? Do you think there's enough and people who are vegan should focus on other things? What are your thoughts?
I definitely think investigations are still very important. I think the more footage we have, the more examples of this, even just standard practice, that some of us, we would consider cruel. I think the more examples of that we have, the less people can claim that, it's just a few places out there that are treating these animals like that. And of course we have to keep it current because, then people will start to say, oh, this happened before in the past. It's not something that really happens now. I think we always have to be continuously working on, improving the amount of knowledge that's available to the public about these places.
Absolutely. Did you ever feel that you were in danger for getting caught or anything like that?
I was pretty lucky, I think, and I don't think that anyone ever suspected me. I did get very nervous while out in the field, even if people would sort of like look at me for a long time, or even just talk to me for a long time. Any sort of extended interaction just feels like they're really looking you over, really trying to figure you out, and that can be pretty nerve-wracking. But I was pretty lucky; no one found me out.
Wow! And so the videos that you did get, did they have a significant impact? Were you happy with? Was it worthwhile? Do you think you doing that job and what you got out of it and what you were able to share?
I definitely think it was worthwhile. We got a lot of media coverage for a lot of my videos, and I really think that's probably the most important thing, just to have that out in the public and have people, realize what is going on behind these closed doors. Because I mean, if these industries had it their way, we wouldn't really have any idea of the kind of practices that they're employing.
Absolutely. Was there anything in there that shocked you that you weren't expecting to see that, I don't know, just anything that maybe people don't really realize? Or I mean, actually one thing I do want to ask you about is how did you get any sort of feel of how those animals were feeling in there? Like, do you feel, I know it's kind of hard to say, but did you feel like you knew that they knew what was happening and anything like that? It's hard to say, but just through their behavior, their body language, things like that.
Sure. I can definitely feel like a lot of fear coming off these animals. When I was in North Carolina working with chickens, I mean, when you pick them up and try and shackle them, they'll always fight. You know, flapping their wings, kicking their legs. They'll, you know, basically defecate out of fear on you. With the pigs, I mean, they were always trying to run. I saw one basically like hop fence out of one of the chutes, trying to get away. One I saw who couldn't use his back legs anymore. He was trying to crawl away just using his front legs. So you can definitely feel the determination of these animals, that, you know, they really want to continue living, and they're really very scared where they are, but they haven't given up on life yet.
And was there anything that shocked you, or even shocked you about the job that you found especially difficult, or anything like that?
Right. Mostly just, I mean, the speed that everything progresses at. I mean, obviously I'd heard the term like factory farms going in, but it really did shock me, just like the level of, supposedly, I guess, you know, mechanization and the whole thing, where everything was supposed to be like very efficient, and, you know, the people that own the plants want it to be that way, so they, you know, push the workers to potentially take these shortcuts in humane handling and their treatment of the animals, and, you know, the animals suffer for it. And I think that just happened at a much, you know, greater rate than I thought initially.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you so much for your time, mate. Really appreciate it, and thanks for all the work you've done. Well done.
Thank you.
Yeah, you've obviously raised a lot of awareness, and that would be a tough job, so respect. Thanks a lot.